Welcome to Women Being Loved, a weekly podcast and upcoming book series to help you and other women 35 and beyond attract deep, passionate, lasting love while honoring your authentic self. I'm Tadra, your host. Hello, lovelies. It's been an incredibly busy week for me, but I'm super happy to be back with you. I really do look forward to doing this podcast. It's the highlight of my week. Today's episode has difficult components. In my interviewing women for my Wise Collective and my upcoming book, I found that a lot of women have experienced domestic violence in their previous marital homes and or in their families of origin. Often when we've gone through something like that, we are changed from who we would have been without the abuse. So it can make life harder to navigate. We don't always have access to all of our magic because it's been crushed. And for many of us, there's the idea that we are not worthy of love, that we will never be the recipients of true, incredible love, and that once someone learns that we are quote unquote damaged, they won't be interested in us. If you're in that place right now, I want you to stay with me. I want to read one woman's story to you about her healing and her transformation and the incredible love that she experienced. I will give a trigger warning here. She mentions the domestic violence that she endured in her first marriage. And she talks about an accidental suicide in her family of origin. The second account is a little more detailed, just so you know. I find her story to be beautiful, vulnerable, but if these topics are triggering for you, please turn off the podcast now. I want to keep you emotionally safe. I'm not going to continually read full stories from the book to you. I did that last week, but I promise after this week, we will go back to the original structure. But these true stories, I feel, are so powerful that they could be life-changing for someone. So, without any further ado, let's jump into Susie's story. Just for context, Susie was 34 when she met Martin. I was invited to a Christmas party in my neighborhood. It was incredibly cold out. I lived in Halifax, Canada, but I went to the party despite the cold. I remember a woman was talking to me about carpooling preschoolers when the front door opened. I looked across the crowd and, I'm not exaggerating, I saw the most handsome man on the freaking planet step into the room. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The carpool woman was asking me if I wanted to take Tuesday or Thursday, but I wasn't thinking about any of that because this incredible looking man was walking towards me. Now, if he was telling his side of the story, which I learned much later, he opened the door, walked in, and saw who he thought was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. When he finally reached my side of the room and stood in front of me, it was like bam, like nothing I'd ever felt. We did small talk, the usual party thing. Then, a little while later, he said to me, "I'm supposed to go to another Christmas party. Do you want to come with me?" I remember thinking, how can I go to another Christmas party with this man? I went to a few friends at the party and asked if they thought I should go with him. It seemed crazy to me, but I ended up going, and we've been together ever since. He's my person. He always has my back, no matter what, and he never stands in my way when I want to do anything. I'm a manifestor generator, so I have a lot of ideas that have taken us on wonderful adventures in our time together. At his core, he's not much like that. He's more steady and fast, but he always wants what's best for me. If I want to do something, he'll say, "Let's do it because it's important to you." I wasn't used to that. I had a lot of trauma in my family of origin and in my previous marriage. My ex-husband used to beat me for years. I sort of believed I deserved it for a long time. The wake-up call came when I realized my daughters would hide under the table from their daddy while mommy was getting beat up. That was unacceptable. So I finally got out of there. I started going to a psychiatrist to deal with the trauma, along with my low self-esteem and my people-pleasing. I wasn't really thinking about a relationship when I met Martin, especially since it was only 2 months after I'd separated from my ex. I considered myself too damaged and emotionally beat down. I told my therapist about Martin pretty early on, and surprisingly, she said that people can go their entire lives without finding a love like this, and that I should just go for it. A year into my relationship with Martin, I went to Montreal with my best friend from college. The Olympics had been in Montreal in '68, and I went to a grand stadium that was full of Olympic energy because Olympians had stood where I was standing. And in that moment, this feeling came over me, and I thought, I can't be afraid to love. My heart is going to open to this man. I'm not going to be afraid. When I got back to Halifax, I told Martin I loved him. I said it first. I think there was significance to that moment in the Olympic Stadium. When I was married to my first husband, I was given the opportunity to carry the 1984 Olympic torch for a mile in Las Vegas en route to Los Angeles. My ex freaked out because he had a camping trip planned and he couldn't believe I wanted to carry the Olympic torch instead of going camping with him. I was a runner. I still am. I've been a lifelong runner. I teased that I ran out of my mom's belly, so he knew the significance of this for me. It was the Olympic torch. By contrast, Martin and I are both avid runners. Our first date, we went running. We've trained for many marathons together. It's incredible when you're passionate about the same things and you're on the same wavelengths. We both love skiing as well. I'm a ski instructor. That's very special to Martin because his first wife lied to him when they were dating and said she enjoyed running and skiing and all the things that he's passionate about. She did that just to land him, and then she refused to do any of those things with him once they were married. Can you imagine how disappointing that was? I don't understand why people do things like that. She also cheated on him, which ended their marriage. We're both so glad we ended up together, and I'm glad it happened when it did instead of earlier in my life. As I said, my family of origin had a lot of trauma, and I wasn't equipped for a relationship like this in my 20s. I think I would have messed this up. I didn't understand myself and the effect that the family trauma had on me. But I've not kept the things that I went through from Martin. I worked through my own healing, but there were still things that were secrets in my family, and one in particular that really affected me in a huge way. When I was 17, I came home one Saturday and my little brother, who was 14 at the time, was dead. He was a 14-year-old boy, so he had sexual thoughts every 5 seconds. He had read that if you put a belt around your neck while you self-pleasure and tighten it before climax, you will have an experience that's out of this world. He did that, and it killed him. That's what I came home to. My family wouldn't talk about it then, and they still don't, because it was so god-awful. I wasn't allowed to talk about it, and the secret ate me up, and I became afraid of belts and ropes. One day, I was watching a movie, and it triggered something in me about this experience. I left the room, found Martin, and told him what happened to my little brother. I had so much shame around this. Martin's response was, "I'm so sorry. That's really sad." But he was very natural about it, almost matter of fact. I didn't understand his response. I said to him, "You need to know that I'm flawed because this happened." And I just kept insisting on that. And he said, "No, it was a terrible thing that happened to your little brother." That was the first time that I realized the shame and hiding that had been going on and continues to this day in my family of origin isn't truth. It was just how they chose to see it and deal with it. That freed me. Currently, Martin and I are dealing with another truth. He's very ill with an incurable cancer. To have found the love of my life and to be faced with losing him is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. It's all the more reason I appreciate the opportunity to tell our story, because if you are so lucky to fall in love with the great love of your life and create this whole beautiful life together, go for it and love it and enjoy all the moments, because there are never going to be enough of them. My advice to other women who haven't yet met the love of their lives: I think you need to believe that it's possible, because I'm telling you, it's possible. Still, every time I look at my husband, I get that same feeling like I almost can't breathe because I still think he's so handsome. He's 81 years old, and I still think he's so wonderful. You don't want to be stuck with someone who isn't your person, because then you can't meet your person. Susie and Martin were married 36 years. Unfortunately, Martin passed away this past January. Although I never met Martin, I could hear from Susie how much he loved her. As usual, please leave a comment or review on this episode. I would love to hear from you. If this episode was inspiring for you, please consider sponsoring this podcast or giving a one-time gift to allow me more time to interview and create quality content weekly. Look in the show notes for more details. See you next week, and as always, remember, love will find you.